What is up, guys? Rick. Feels so good to use Sparrows on Mercury. Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we're going to be going over all of the brand new Sundial weapons added into Destiny 2 with the Season of Dawn. Now, all of these weapons are going to be acquirable from linking the associated obelisks right now on Untitled Chapter or Mars, and next week on Nessus or the EDZ, to the Sundial, and then just farming the Sundial and getting these rewards. So we're going to be delving into these weapons, taking a look at their stats and their perks, determining their PvE and PvP god rolls so that you guys know what to go after, and importantly, what obelisks to link up. So let's start here with the Tangled Shore obelisk. This is going to be dropping two different weapons. Firstly, we have the Steelfeather repeater. This legendary kinetic auto rifle, well, as you can see by the stats, is a 720 RPM auto. Now, this is the fastest firing, lowest damage archetype, but it does put out a lot of damage. In fact, this archetype is the best for overall damage output. And stats-wise, it's pretty average for this archetype. Let's move on to the perks. Well, here, there is some really good options. We've got some great ballistics, stuff like high cal rounds and ricochet rounds. And then in the first perk category, things get very good. Firstly, we do have Subsistence. This, with a large 50-round magazine auto rifle, is no joke, and this is something that got buffed recently. It's no longer going to absolutely decimate your reserves. But on top of that, frankly much better, we have Feeding Frenzy. Getting a kill increases reload dramatically. Feeding Frenzy is a super good perk. In the second perk slot, well, frankly, things go off the rails. We do have Surrounded to gain a damage bonus when enemies are nearby, not a bad perk. We have the brand new perk from Season of Dawn, Elemental Capacitor. Increased stats based on the currently equipped subclass. So for solar subclasses, you increase your reload speed. For arc, you increase your handling, and for void, you increase your stability. For this type of weapon, because the stability is a little bit suffering, it shoots very fast, I would recommend using void if you do have this perk. More traditionally, however, the great perks to look for are Swashbuckler to gain a damage bonus and a big one for a melee kill, and big one, Multi-Kill Clip. This is absolutely huge. Multi-Kill Clip is going to give you a damage bonus depending on how many enemies you kill before you reload, and if you get Multi-Kill Clip times 3, you're receiving something like a 60% damage bonus. Multi-Kill Clip is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of a damage bonus, and it is arguably the best PvE damage increasing perk. Therefore, the role of Feeding Frenzy plus Multi-Kill Clip is, in my opinion, the god roll. We do have some more brand new perks present. Osmosis, where using your grenade changes the element of this gun, which is normally kinetic, to whatever your subclass is. Great if you're in a Nightfall doing match game stuff. We also have Vorpal Weapon, which is going to increase the damage against bosses, vehicles, and guardians with their super active. And although both of those new perks are interesting, I don't think either is at home in this type of weapon. You're not really going to be using an auto rifle to kill bosses. Maybe in PvP, being able to use Feeding Frenzy plus Vorpal Weapon to take down supers, not a terrible idea, but I think that Feeding Frenzy Multi-Kill Clip roll is the key here. By the way, obviously went over all the new perks. We're just going to breeze through them and not read their descriptions for the next weapons. All right, next up, also at the Tangled Shore Obelisk, we have the Breachlight Legendary Kinetic Sidearm. This belongs to the Aggressive Burst archetype. This is a super rare archetype. I think the Death by Scorn is the only other one that belongs to this archetype, so it's going to shoot in 2-round bursts. And the stats are pretty good for this archetype. Again, it's a very rare archetype, so we don't really have a lot to compare it to. Moving on to the perks, we have some really great options. Stuff like Accurized Rounds is present in the first perk slot. Probably the best thing you're going for is Outlaw, but having Demolitionist here is actually really interesting. It usually is just in that second slot. Speaking of that second slot, we again have Elemental Capacitor to change its stats around. Then we've got a lot of good perks here. Rampage, very, very good. Quick Draw, potentially for PvP, and multi-kill clip. So obviously, Outlaw plus multi-kill clip, just like Feeding Frenzy multi-kill clip, nutty, absolutely nutty, and probably the best thing to go for. However, I do want to mention that Demolitionist in the first slot, getting kills will get your grenade back faster, actually synergizes quite well with Osmosis, where again using a grenade changes the elemental damage of this weapon. Like, those go together really well, so this might be one of the best Osmosis weapons out there. Not to mention, just having a 25 round magazine, which is pretty big, means that you can run something like Demolitionist plus Rampage and just be slaying out and then just have a normal reload. But it is time to move on to the next obelisk, which is the Mars obelisk. This is offering another 2 weapons. Firstly, we have the Martyr's Retribution Legendary Energy Grenade Launcher. This is extremely unique, belonging to a brand new damage archetype called Wave Frame. So this is going to make it so that when this grenade launcher hits the ground, it's going to essentially make a thermite grenade explosion, explode outwards, and kill a bunch of enemies within a line of fire. Now, stats-wise, hard to tell for this type of grenade launcher, but it's really that very unique wave frame intrinsic that makes this gun worth going after. Looking at the perks here, you're probably going to want to increase stuff like velocity over necessarily blast radius. I'm not sure how much blast radius actually affects the wave frame attack, but looking at the first perk category, we have some pretty good ones. Mainly, I'm looking at, firstly, field prep, just more ammo in the reserves, gonna allow you to use this weapon so much more in a PvE environment, but also auto-loading holster. Use this weapon, and then switch off of it right away, use your primary, do whatever, and then when you switch back, it's gonna be reloaded. That is definitely something to look at. In the second perk slot, we have Elemental Capacitor. You don't really want anything other than reload speed for a solo subclass, maybe look at that. Demolitionist is really interesting, especially because of this weapon's unique attack. It's actually capable of getting multiple enemies killed in a single attack pretty easily, so throwing on Demolitionist is no joke. And Demolitionist plus this, plus actually being a Solar Titan with thermite grenades, is quite a funny combo. We also have a brand new perk. This is a really interesting one. Lead from Gold. Picking up heavy ammo also grants ammo to this weapon. And this means that if you're going to utilize this weapon, you can have lead from gold and then also use a heavy grenade launcher. This means that when you put on your finders and you get all of those little heavy finders, those are going to work for this weapon as well. You'll basically get to use this grenade launcher as a primary weapon, and that's going to be nutty. At least in a PvE environment. For PvP, something like Rangefinder or Demolitionist is your best bet. Next up from Mars, we have the Line in the Sand Legendary Power Linear Fusion Rifle. Looking at the stats here, this belongs to the 533 Charge Time Archetype, average stats, but this does have some very, very interesting perks. So, we've got kind of the normal assortment of barrels, and then a bunch of different coils and batteries and stuff. Then, the first perk slot, we do have Rapid Hit. So, rapid precision hits temporarily increase stability and reload speed, and with a weapon with, 5 rounds in a magazine, if you're shooting a boss, if you're shooting a more powerful enemy, if you're just killing a bunch of normal enemies, being able to get, 3 or 4 shots off and then reload super, super fast is definitely no joke. But then, in that second perk slot, things just go off the rails. Firstly, Rampage. Getting a kill increases damage, stacks up to 3 times. Gonna be actually pretty powerful with this weapon. We also have Firing Line. It deals more precision damage when 2 or more allies are near. So Firing Line has proven itself to be one of the best perks out there for sniper rifles, increasing their damage substantially. You bet that having a Line in the Sand plus Firing Line is going to mean that this is out DPSing during a boss phase, most other linear fusion rifles. It also has a brand new perk, Clown Cartridge. Returning from D1, reloading this weapon randomly overfills it from reserves. So it has a 5-round magazine. I have a roll with clown cartridge. When I reload, it's most often 7, I think sometimes 8 rounds in a magazine. So going from 5 to 7 rounds with clown cartridge is again really going to help with that damage output and just going to perform quite well. We've also got backup plan. Grants reduced charge time and increased handling speed for a short time immediately after swapping to this weapon. Backup plan is probably the best PvP perk you're looking for on fusion rifles. It's pretty unusual to find it on a linear fusion rifle, but if you want to have a really snappy linear, going for this plus backup plan could be the move. And auto-loading holster, like being able to shoot this weapon and just switch off to a different weapon, do damage with your special, switch back to this weapon, it's going to be fully reloaded. I mean, I wish it and firing line were in different perk slots, but all of those are very, very good. But it is time to move on from there to the Nessus Sundial. This again is coming next week, and it contains 2 weapons. The first one is the Patron of Lost Causes legendary kinetic fusion rifle. A lot of kinetic stuff. This is going to belong to the 200 rounds per minute archetype, which is fairly good. That's Mida multi-tool archetype. And stats-wise, pretty average, very high handling, however. Moving on to the perks, we've got, pretty average perks here. In the first couple of slots, as these are very commonly found, in the first perk slot, we do have Rapid Hit, very good on this type of scout rifle, and another one that's very good, full auto trigger system, just for consistency, especially if you're going to wind up using this in PvP. In the second perk slot, we got a lot of the new perks, Elemental Capacitor, Vorpal Weapon, and Osmosis. I think potentially Osmosis, again, for Nightfalls and stuff, could be good. Explosive Payload is also here, and that is undeniably a pretty good perk as well. But to be perfectly honest, really none of these combos stand out as being absolutely phenomenal. Maybe running Osmosis just because a scout is going to let you use it at a little bit longer ranges, which can be preferred in a really high 980 Nightfall. In any event, it's time to move on, and the second Nessus weapon is actually the Traveler's Judgement 5 Legendary Energy Sidearm. This may be somewhat unexpected, but some of the old Mercury weapons are coming back and in the loot pool for these obelisks. In any event, this weapon belongs to the 491 rounds per minute, 3-round burst archetype for sidearms. This is generally a pretty favorable archetype. Its stats pretty good, stability very, very good. Now, looking at the random rolls here, in that first perk category, we have some very good options. Rapid Hit and Feeding Frenzy are present to just make this thing reload super, super fast. I think you're looking for either one of those. And then in the second perk category, I'm very sad to not see something like Rampage, Kill Clip, or something like that. But we do have some decent options. Surrounded, probably one of the better things in PvE, that tied with actually Dragonfly, where precision hits create an elemental damage explosion. This could be really good with Dragonfly. It is capable of putting out a lot of damage very quickly because of its archetype, and then just causing explosions on top of that is actually decent. Probably Headseeker for PvP would be the best thing there. You don't really need something like Tap the Trigger because its stability is so good just regardless. So this is a nice little weapon. Moving on from there, however, we do have the last obelisk with the EDZ obelisk. And the first weapon we're going to look at here is the Gallant Charge Legendary Energy Fusion Rifle. This belongs to the highest damaging, high impact frame damage archetype. Stats pretty good. Like, I'm looking at that range. That range is pretty good, especially, but not necessarily completely out of the ordinary for this archetype. This archetype has proven itself to be absolutely nutty. The Erentil belongs here, so yeah, this could be very, very good. Looking at the perks here, you are capable of getting liquid coils to increase that impact damage, which some people really do want, just the highest impacting fusion possible. Then in the first perk category, we have, very interestingly, Demolitionist. Again, this is often in that second perk category, competing with all of the damage increasing perks. To find it here is very interesting. Auto-loading holster could be good as well. In that second perk category, off the bat, really interesting one, lead for gold. Again, we're picking up heavy refills ammo. Being able to have lead for gold and, let's say, demolitionist and use this again as a primary, having a fusion rifle like this is gonna give you a little bit more play and reliability than the Martyr's Retribution grenade launcher, so that's something to look at. But also we have rangefinder, great in PvP. Tap the trigger, great in PvP. Swashbuckler, great in PvP and PvE. Rampage, great in both. Multi-kill clip, nutty in both. The only thing that makes me hesitate on multi-kill clip, which by the way like almost never spawns on fusion rifles, this I think is the first one, it doesn't have anything to increase the reload, so it is going to be a pretty slow reload speed, especially if you remember those stats to get that multi-kill clip bonus, but you know, it's still a great bonus. For me, I'm going to be looking for Demolitionist plus either Lead for Gold, Swashbuckler, Rampage, or Multi-Kill Clip. Moving on from there, the last weapon we're taking a look at today, the last from the EDZ Obelisk, is another returning Mercury weapon, the Infinite Paths 8. This is a legendary energy pulse rifle, and looking at the stats here, this belongs to the 450 rounds per minute lightweight frame archetype. This is going to be doing just a little bit more damage than the rapid fire frame archetype. The bad juju also belongs in this archetype, and it's not actually a bad one in PvE and PvP. The other stats, however, are pretty average with this boasting decent handling and reload speed. But moving on to the perks, we do have some interesting choices here. It does come with Accuraz rounds to really increase that range, or steady rounds to do the same for stability. In that first perk slot, again, we have Demolitionist, so that is something to be looking at. Aside from that, none of these perks are really that good. Maybe Moving Target if you're a PvP player. In the second perk category, we do have some a little bit better options here. Swashbuckler, probably the best thing you're looking for. Dragonfly, a little bit uncommon on pulse rifles, so that could be decent in PvE, but that is pretty much it. Like, I would be looking for Demolitionist plus Swashbuckler, maybe Demolitionist plus Dragonfly. And so guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.